Hi, and welcome to my review number 4 on polynomial functions. This review is on videos numbers 37 to 39. And as in all my reviews, we treat it as a quiz, and this one was marked out of 19. So mark each question, total at the bottom on each page, and then put your total over 19 and convert it to a percent. Here we go on the review. Question 1. Solve for x, and we have x plus 4 times x plus 1 times x minus 2 all cubed is less than 0. And less than 0 means that we're going to look for the negative numbers, and because there's no equal sign, that means that the x values, or the X-intercepts, or the values of x that give you 0, are not included. They're not included. So in terms of this is a round bracket instead of a square bracket. Okay, so the X-intercepts, so the values of x that will give you 0, are -4, -1, and 2. So let's plot these on the number line. There's the -4. Let's make this a -1, and let's make this a 2. So to answer this question is not included. So that means the 2 is not included, the -1 is not included, and the -4 is not included, because we can't have it equal to 0. So what I do is I put a number greater than 2, which is 3, between -1 and 2, so I put a 0. Between -1 and -4, I put a -2. And to the left of -4, I have a -5. So I'm going to take each of these numbers, 3, and sub it into each of these brackets. So when I take 3 and sub it in here, I get a plus. When I put 3 in here, I get a plus. When I put 3 in here, I get a plus, and a plus cubed is still a plus, so I get a positive and a positive and a positive. So the product of all of those is a positive. When I put a 0 in here, I get a positive. Put a 0 in here and I get a positive. Put a 0 in here, I get a negative, and a negative cubed is a negative. So I have a positive, positive, negative. So if you multiply positive, positive, negative, you get a negative. So now I'm going to put a -2 into these brackets. A -2 gives me a positive, negative, and a negative. And again, a negative cubed is a negative. So I have, put a -2 in, I get a positive, negative, negative. And so when I multiply positive times a negative times a negative, I get a positive. And now I'm going to put -5 in. A -5 will make this negative. -5 will make this negative. -5 will make that a negative number, and a negative number cubed is negative. So I get a negative, negative, negative. And the product of 3 negatives is a negative. So because I have less than, I'm picking up the negatives. So the negatives lie between -1 and 2. But the -1 is not included, and the 2 is not included. Then I have also the numbers down here to the left of the -4. So that's in union with -4 is not included, and we're going down to -infinity on down. So the 5 marks are distributed. If you say picked up the negative because it's less than, you get a mark. If you picked up the 3 intercepts, you get a mark. If you picked up these pluses and minuses like I did, you get a mark. And if you got each of these answers, it's a mark each, so 5 marks. So if you have the correct answers, give yourself 5 marks. If you don't, you can give yourself part marks. Number 2, solve by graphing. So what we have is an inequality. Y is greater than or equal to -x times x minus 1 times x minus 3 squared. So again, we have greater than equal to. So greater than equal to, greater than, I know I'll graph or shade the points that's above the boundary. And because I have an equal to, then the boundary will be solid, means all the points on the boundary are included in the solution set. So now I'll pick up looking at, I have x is here, so I have x is equal to 0. I have x minus 1 equals 0. That means x is 1. I have x minus 3 equals 0, means x is equal to 3. So we'll plot those intercepts. That's the x-intercepts. The x-intercepts are 0, and because it's, I said because it's solid, it's equal. So the 0, x equals 0 is a dot, solid. Notice up here, it was hollow, means not included. I have an x-intercept at 1, so there's a hollow at 1, and there's an x-intercept at 3. Whoop, hollow, solid. What am I saying hollow for? It's solid because it's an equal sign. And 3 is solid. And I have to graph. So where do I start? Because I have a negative, then I will start down here and come up. If this was a positive x here, I would start here and come down. So it's a solid boundary. So I'm coming up, solid, draw a line. And notice, this is a square. So x minus 3 is squared. So the x-intercept is 3. Because it's squared, it will be tangent and bounce off. So I'm coming up towards 3. It'll bounce off. It'll come down. And don't make any difference how low I go. But I got to come back up to go through this x-intercept at 1. So I come down, turn, and go up. It goes through the 1. And now as I go up, it has to come down and go through this intercept. So I make a turn and come down. And there's the graph. That's the boundary line. That's the curve. If you had no greater than here, this curve would just be this. So it would be the boundary line, which is solid. But we have a greater than, and a greater than is shaded above. So that means think of this as a fence. So we're on this side of the fence. So we're shade like this. So all these, I'm shading in all these points. Don't have to do what you call black, just show the direction. So that means these points here, down here, and I can extend this on down, 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 and this on, down. So the points keep on shading. So, but to do that, I also have to do what I call a test point. So a test point. So what, I can't take 0, 0 because it's on the boundary. So the test point would be one of the ones I shade here. So I can take this one if I want, which is not there. That means it would come out to be false. Or I could take this point right here, which means it come out to be true. So it don't make any difference which one you pick. So you can pick x is 0, y is 1. So I'm going to sub in y is 1, greater than or equal to. Now x is 0. So if you put a 0 here, you're going to get a 0. You put a 0 here, you're going to get negative 1. You put a 0 here, you're going to get a negative 3 squared. And that's greater than equal to. So it makes no difference what these are. 0 times these 2 will be a 0. 0 is greater than or equal to. 1 is greater than 1 is greater than 0. So if 1 is greater than 0, that's true. So this point that I picked, which is right here, makes it true. So shading, as I said, shading greater than is above. So this point verifies that it's okay. So that means the solution for this system, the solution or solutions is the shaded solution is the shaded region and the boundary line. So all the points that are shaded and the boundary line. So, and the 6 marks are as follows. So if you did your intercepts, you got a mark for those. If you said it was solid, you got a mark. If you shade it above, you got another mark. If you did the tangent here, you got another mark. And if you wrote out the solution, and you got another mark. And we got the curve. If you started here and came up this way, you have another mark. So 6 marks in total. So 11 for that page. And one more to do. And this one is graph y is less than a negative x cubed plus 7x minus 6. And again, we have a less than. And in terms of a graph with x and y, less than means you're going to shade below the boundary line. And because there's no equal sign here, the boundary line is broken. It means I'm just going to do a dotted line. So what we do here, I make negative x cubed plus 7x minus 6 equal 0. So we take this equation and we'll check the x-intercepts or the roots of the equation. So we notice that it's in descending order. I notice that there's no x common, so I can't take it a GCF. But I do notice that negative 1 plus 7 minus 6 equals 0. So that means the sum of the coefficients is 0. So that means 1 is a root. So I'll divide 1 into this expression by synthetic division. So that's a negative 1. Notice 0, x squared is not there, so that's a 0. That's a 7, and this is the negative 6. Draw a line, we'll do synthetic division, bring it down, negative 1, multiply, negative 1, add, negative 1, multiply 1 by negative 1, negative 1, add 6, multiply 6 by 1, you get 6, and add, you get a 0. So again, the sum of the coefficients was 0, so 1 was going to be a root. That means I have a depressed equation. This is x cubed, x squared, x constant. So this is an x squared. So I have a negative x squared minus x plus 6 equals 0, depressed equation. So this is a depressed equation. And because the remainder is 0. Remember, we have a 1, so that means x minus 1 is a factor of this trinomial here, which is cubic. So now I can do two things. I can either take the negative out when I go to factor, like this, or I could divide through, and I could, because it's equal to 0, I can multiply by negative 1. So if I multiply by negative 1, it makes it x squared plus x minus 6 equals 0. Either way, if you factor it like this or you multiply by negative 1, you have an equation that you're going to factor. Either way, it's going to end up to be the same. So x squared is x and x. The factors of 6 to give us a 1. 6 and 1 is the product. 3 and 2 is the product. 6 and 1 will not give you a 1 because the 1 is the sum. So it's a 3 and a 2. But the product is negative and the sum is positive, so it has to be a positive 3, negative 2. Multiply. 3 times negative 2, negative 6, add 1. That means when it's equal to 0, so I have x plus 3 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. So x is negative 3, x is 2. So that means, notice, now I have an equation, y is less than, and we have a negative, so notice the negative, that's a negative on the x, so I have to keep that negative here. So a negative, because of the x plus 3, x minus 2, and an x minus 1. So I have negative times these two times this one. This is in the factored form. And as a result, what we have is, we're going to graph this. So the x-intercepts are 1. Notice it's broken, so this is hollow. I can't have, even though 1 is an intercept, that 1 won't make it, there's no equal 0. And the other intercept is -3, which is right here, but is not included. And the other intercept is 2, but is not included. And so we have to graph this, but what we'll check, we'll make x equal to 0. So if we make x equal to 0, y, put a 0 here, you get a 0, put a 0 here, you get a 0. So y is -6. So that's the y-intercept is 0, -6, which is right here. But it can't be that, so it's a hollow. But it will go through that intercept, but it's not included. And because it's negative, because I have a negative here, it's going to open downward from this furthest x-intercept on the right. So it's going down from here like this. So we go up through. Notice, not bouncing off because it's a linear, and linear, and linear. So it goes up through, got to come back down, comes down to the intercept, comes on down, down, and go down past, then it turns, and it comes up, and it goes up through. Not concerned exactly where the turning occurs. So there it is, goes on up. So that's roughly the shape of it. And there's passes through the -6 on the y-intercept, passing through the 2, passing through the 1, passing through the -3, going down, and less than is shading below. So that means it's on this side of the fence. So if this goes on down, and you're shading down here and here on this side. So you're on this side of the fence as such. And I'll take the point, the test point, just to make sure. I'm going to use the test point as 0, 0. So this is the test point. So according to less than, which is shade below, the test point should be false. So let's see. Y is 0, put a 0 in this equation, less than. So when I put x is 0, that's a 0. When x is 0, that's a 0. So I get -6. So 0 is less than -6. No, 0 is greater than -6. So that's false. So that means that this test point, you don't shade in this region here. So what we shaded is okay. So the solution to this is the shaded region but not the boundary, not the points on the boundary. The boundary is not included because there's no equal sign. And there's 8 marks. Then you can give 1 for this equation. You can give 1 for here. You can give 1 for each of these. That's 4. And you can give 1 for the y-intercept is 5. And if you have it broken, you can give another one a 6. If you have it going down is 7. If you shade on this side is 8. And total of 8. So if you total up both pages, then you come back and you take your total, well, you add it up and put it over 19, divide 19 into the numerator, convert it to a decimal, move it 2 places to the right to get a percent. And that brings us to the end of the video, and this is video number, and I have one more video coming, which is a total review of objective questions on the unit. So, get back to the page here. If you wish, you may click on the like button, click on the subscribe button if you're not a subscriber. Visit my website, www.mathfullyexplained.com, to find more information about me, my videos, and the content. That's the content is on my YouTube channel called Math Fully Explained. And I thank you for viewing my video, and I hope the video helped you. Bye-bye.